ਪਿਆਰੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So it's nice to see we're starting to get more and more you out here now. The new year started and we're doing some really good programs for you. So hopefully you're going to tell your friends and your cousins and anyone in your school, anyone you know, to come out and sit here in Guruji's Charan and learn a little bit about your religion and Sikhi. So I'm going to ask you a question today. What did we talk about last time? What did we talk about last week on Sunday? Yes? Guru Gobind Singh Ji. What about Guru Gobind Singh Ji? His Prakash Divs, right? The day he came to this world and he blessed us with all these beautiful teachings to lead us to the path that we are here on today, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this path that we're on. When you're at school, which is the one thing you feel the most pressure from in your classroom? Where do you get the most pressure from? Okay, so that's homework is like academic pressure, but like to change your personality, when it comes to your identity, where are you getting the most pressure from? It's not your homework, right? Homework is just sort of work you have to do. Sorry? No, but where does that come from? Who's making you feel that pressure? Is it your teacher? Okay, when people make fun of you, right? People in your classroom, right? Maybe people in older grades, right? It's the people around us. People that make us feel pressured. Is that true? Right? It's not your teacher, right? Your teacher doesn't start making you feel pressured. It's not your parents. Or unfortunately, maybe for some people it is. I know some children who want to sometimes follow the path of Sikhi and their parents are the ones they don't want to. But a lot of times it's your friends, right? They're the ones that influence you. And as you get older, when you're younger, no one cares. And they've done studies now and they're like, wow, do you know Canada in the world is an example of the way people are able to live together, different cultures? Like in the whole world, when you talk about the country that stands out the most, it's Canada. And they talk about it. Leaders get together and talk about the fact that we are learning to live with a lot of different religions and cultures all in one place. And we are more tolerant, which means we are more accepting of different faiths because we've grown up with them. So they did studies and they found out that children are not racist. Children are not born racist. Children don't naturally dislike other people. Actually, they like other people. So when you put children on the playground and one's a little child with a juda on their head, and one's maybe a little Muslim child, one's a child from Spain, one's a child from Italy, from China, Japan, they all play together. They don't care what they look like. It's when you get older that these things start to affect us. Sometimes it's maybe from home, people will make comments, or sometimes it's things you're reading. And when you get older, you start to judge other people, but not when you're little children. So children have the most innocent hearts. And when you read Gurdwara, it tells you the same thing, that we come into this world and we're slowly are adding more and more to our minds and our hearts and our souls, and the good and the negative. And so that's why all of you that are young right now, you're coming here, you're listening to the kathas. As you're going to get older, you're going to start complaining and you say, I don't want to go anymore, because you start to think you know everything. You start to have that feeling. So that's why you're really, really blessed that you're here, and your parents are blessed that they're bringing you here, and you did something good in your last lifetime. And Guruji tells us, he goes, you know, you're in this world and you want to get educated. So if you met someone who was a neurosurgeon, he did surgery on the human brain, so he was even higher than a doctor, would you think that's a pretty smart person? How many of you think that's a pretty smart person? We think that, right? Like, wow, that's brilliant. Or a person who has a PhD and wrote some of the biggest, most important books in our lifetime, we think that's amazing. But Guruji tells us, he goes, look, this worldly knowledge is going to come and it's going to go. But the person that's the most intellectual, who is really the one that you can say is truly the smartest, so when you're looking and someone says, well, here's a surgeon, and here's a PhD, and here's like an engineer, this person is the person who made that amazing bridge that we see out there. Which one is the smartest? So we're going to be like, which one is more brilliant? But Guruji tells us, who's the true Gyani, the truest, most intellectual person? And he said, Pakahu ko detnehe, nehbe banat an, koho nanak sunre mana, Gyani tahe bakhan. He goes, you can call that person the truly most brilliant and intellectual, who is what? Who never makes people afraid. So you know when you say like you get peer pressure, people making fun of you, that's making people feel uncomfortable. So you never do that to anyone else, and yet you understand who you are, and you're never ashamed to be truly who you are. That, Guruji says, is the most intellectual person. And so that's amazing, because we always think it's someone who reads the most books. See, all these things we're reading, they're helping us in our works and our jobs and our occupations. But when we're dealing with other people, if you're still ashamed inside of who you are, if someone was a doctor and they were raised as a good Sikh, but they're embarrassed about their juda, they get older, they cut it off. They're like, you know what, when I hang out with my friends, it doesn't seem so cool, even though I'm 30 years old and I have children of my own, but I feel embarrassed. You know, I look different. I want to hang out with the other cool doctors. You know what? Guruji says, what kind of intelligence is that? So I want to share a story. I want to ask you a question, actually. Let's say you met somebody who was a year and a half old. Actually, first I'm going to ask you this question. When you were young, how did you learn to read and write and talk? How did you learn to do all of these things? Yes? From where? You did from Guruji? Did you learn all that, how to read and write and talk? No, Guruji gives you these blessings and things, but no, he didn't teach you that. Teachers and parents, right? But how did they teach you? When you're a year and a half old, you didn't have a teacher when you're a year and a half old or 2 years old. How did you learn? Most children are saying a few words by the time they're 2, and by the time they're 3 years old, they're talking. Maybe not perfect sentences. They're talking. They haven't started going to preschool yet, but they're still talking, telling their mom or dad that they're hungry, they want to eat, they understand where the washroom is, they know all of these things. They can point out things to you. If you say, what's that? They'll say, oh, that's a dog, that's a cat. Where do they learn all this from? Excellent. She goes, because parents talk the language, and then we listen and we learn. Your parents didn't sit you down with a book when you're 3 years old and said, here's a dog, here's a cat. They would just talk, and sometimes they'd point things out to you, and you learn because you're listening to them, right? How many of you agree? By listening and watching your parents. So now imagine there's a baby born, and this is true, a lot of babies are born like this, and the baby's about a year and a half, and they can't hear. They're deaf. How would you teach that child to communicate? What would you do? Signs, so you would use signs, right? So that's with your hands, use sign language. Yes? Okay, so he said he would use books to point out things, right? And then, and how would you explain to them? Because they can't hear. So when you show them a picture, how would you explain to them that this is a dog? How would you tell them? So you would act it out, right, maybe? And then slowly you have to teach them how to use sign language, right? And you can talk with your hand. I have a niece who's hearing, she's actually profoundly deaf, which means she's completely deaf. So if you walk up behind her and you even yell at the top of your lungs, she won't hear you. But she might hear she might feel your footsteps on the floor, but she can't hear a word you're saying. But when she was younger, my whole family, we learned how to do sign language. And so we used to sign to her, then she learned sign language from her school, so we communicated with her by doing sign language. But then she started to be able to read lips. I can't still read lips, but she can. So if you're looking at her and talking and you're not signing, she can still know what I'm saying because she's learned how to read lips. But if you stand behind her, and like I said, you can be yelling and screaming, she won't even know you're there. So that is how she learned. So now, what if you have another child is born, and this happens all the time, and the child can hear, but the child is blind. The child is born, and they're blind. Can they see you when you're signing? No, so how would you teach that child who's blind how to communicate and read and write? So the parents will talk to them, right? And they'll tell them it's a dog, but they can't see the dog. So they're telling them so they can hear that. The parents said, there's a dog, but they can't see. So how would they know that? Yes? Because they'll tell them, but when they say that's a dog, they don't know what's the dog. They can't see. What would they do? Okay, so they're hearing, so they're going to listen to things like maybe they'll hear the dog bark or something. That's one way, right? So they'll start seeing things. They'll hear the bark. They'll say, oh, that barking noise is a dog. What else? Okay, very good. So she goes, they might describe the dog, right? So this is an animal. It's got 4 legs. They'll make him touch the dog, right? Do you all agree? So it's hard though, right? Do you think it's harder to learn if you're blind? Yes. Is it harder to learn if you're deaf? You're hearing impaired? Yes. So now I want to tell you another story. And this is true too. There's a child that's born, and she's a year and a half, and she can't hear. She's completely deaf, and she's blind. How do you teach her? How do you teach her? Sorry? Pardon? So when she touches it, how does she know what it is? So when she touches this, right? And you say, okay, that's a microphone. How can she can't hear that. So she can touch it, but she doesn't know what it is because she can't hear you and she can't see it. So how can you let her know? So he's saying like blind people, they can read too, and it's called Braille, and that's how they read. They touch it with their fingers, but how are you going to teach her Braille in the first place? She can't hear. So you have to explain it. Like if somebody was blind, you would tell them, you say, look, I'm going to put your fingers on these letters and see these 3 dots together in a line, and this line makes an L. That's the letter L, and then that's how they're understanding, but they're deaf. Does that seem impossible? Okay, so children that were being born like that before, it did seem impossible to teach them, and they weren't being taught. So it didn't happen very often, but children that were born that were deaf and blind, they never learned to speak, and they never learned to communicate, ever. But do you think they still had feelings in their heart? Yes, they did. And I'm going to tell you a story of this girl. Her name is Helen, and she was born. She could hear, but when she was a year old, she got a really bad flu, and then she couldn't, after that, hear anymore, and she became blind. And she couldn't communicate, and because she couldn't communicate, her parents couldn't explain anything to her, then she was frustrated all the time because she couldn't explain anything. Do you think she ever got hungry? Do you think she ever got hungry? Yes. Do you think she ever got thirsty? Do you think she ever wanted to go and tell her mom, I love you so much? But she couldn't explain any of this to her family. And then her parents had another baby, and then she could tell they're always around that baby because they wouldn't be hugging her as much, but she couldn't ever see her parents. She couldn't see the little baby, so she'd get really frustrated, and then she'd act like an animal. So when people came to the house, she was like a little animal. She'd always be running around like an animal does, and she'd growl because she didn't know how to talk, so she just made sounds like that, and they'd think like, oh my gosh, she's like an animal. So they told her parents, you need to send her away to a school where they keep children like this because she's not safe. And one time she got so frustrated she couldn't explain what she wanted to say. She couldn't talk, so she pushed her brother really hard, and he almost rolled into the fire. They had a fireplace there. So parents got really scared, and they were going to send her away. But the mom really loved the daughter, and she didn't want to do that. And so what she did is she asked this lady to come live with them. Her name is Annie Sullivan. And this lady, and this is an amazing story, and there's so many books written about her. Does anybody know the name of this lady? What's her name? Helen. Does anyone know? Yes, Helen Keller. How many of you have heard of Helen Keller? And how did Annie Sullivan finally teach her how to communicate? What did she do? Yes. She taught her sign language, but the way she did it is so hard. The very first word she ever learned was water. So what she did is she kept putting her hand under water and then making signs for it. And first, Helen Keller didn't understand what that meant because she would sign on her hand, in the palm of her hand, right in the palm of her hand. So normally when people sign, they sign like this. They'll sign like this. This is what they're doing. They're talking with their hands, right? But she was signing into her hand so she could feel the signing. And so finally she understood that, oh, these letters are meaning this word. And Helen Keller became the first person who was ever deaf and blind to go to school. She went to university. She even wrote books, and she read books. And she became somebody that's, when we look at people in this world, we think of her like a miracle. And they actually call Annie Sullivan a miracle worker for what she did. And she had a lot of beautiful beliefs. And she would say that people look at her when she was young and say, oh, who cares? It's just one child. Look at all the children that are fine. And she'd say, I'm still only one, but I'm still someone. I'm not like dead. I'm still a human being. I'm still one person. And she goes, anything I can do, I'm going to do. So she had a beautiful life. She lived to be in her 80s, And in the end of her life, her teacher, Annie Sullivan, stayed with her for a long time. Annie died too. And like I said, she went to be the very first person to ever go to university and get a degree. And she's blind and couldn't hear. And her teacher would sit next to her, and the professor would talk, and the teacher was signing to her fist, her palm of her hand, which was happening. So you know how we go to school. Is it that hard for us to learn? No. It's so easy for us to learn because we can see, we can hear, and we still complain to our parents, right? Like, oh, I hate school, it's so hard. But imagine what she had to do just to learn how to read and write. And she really believed in God. And you know, what does Guruji tell us? He goes, Man tu jyot swarup hai, apna mool pashan. Because you are the light of God. God's right inside of you. You have got to understand where you came from. Because you keep thinking you just came from your mom's stomach. No, you did not. You are a soul that came from somewhere else before. That's just how you were given birth in this world. You have got to understand. And where is your origin? Where did you come from? Where did all of us come from? What are we? We are the light of God. And we forget that, right? And that's what I was talking about, that first, who's a Gyani? The person who understands that we are the light of God. He's inside of us. And we have a major, beautiful purpose in this world that's more than what we're making of it. And it's not just to do the little things we do, play our Nintendo, games and our Xboxes and watch TV and just go out there and go to school only. It's to also understand that God, our Creator, that we are meant to become one with Him one day and meet Him again. And that's our real journey. And whoever can understand that gets closer to Him. And this is what she said, and I think this is the most beautiful thing. It tells about her. She goes, the most beautiful things that you see in the world, they cannot be seen or touched. You can't see them or touch them. You can only feel them with the heart. What is she talking about?
Be felt with the heart.
So he said you can't feel Waheguru. Can you touch or feel love? No, you can't touch it, you can't see it, but you can feel it. And that's what she was talking about, that you know what? So what, I can't see the rose, and I'll never see the trees, and I'll never get to see what a sun looks like, and I'll never ever get to see what the grass looks like, and I'll never get to see what the stream sounds like when it's flowing, or what the bark of a dog is like, or the meow of a cat, or the birds flying in the sky, or my mother telling me she loves me. I'll never hear any of this. I'll never see it, but I can feel it all in my heart. And I know my parents love me. And I know what the meaning of God is. And there's a reason I want to bring this up to you, is because some of you have been coming here for now, 2 years, right? A little bit more than 2 years. And you come here and we tell you these beautiful stories. But sometimes you don't understand what the real message here is. That you are children of this one God. And there's so many miracles happening right here. Isn't this a miracle that this girl was deaf and blind, the first person ever to be able to read and write? But what would Guruji tell you? Is she a god? Is there a religion out there that worships Helen Keller? Is she a god? No. So if Helen Keller is just a human being, and God took a lot of the gifts that He has given us, but He said still she can do, she's probably did more than some of you are going to do. How many of you think you're going to write a book when you get older? Some of you may never go to university. She has done stuff that a lot of people, only 10% of people in this world will go to university. 10%. You might go to college, you might go to school, but only 10% go to university. So she did what 90% of the world was not going to ever do. I've never written a book. A lot of people have never written books. Ask your parents. Have any of your parents written a book? But she wrote books, and people love her books. And so here's this woman. And so God is telling us that look at the miracle that happens in a person who's blind and deaf. So can you imagine the miracles that must live inside of your Guru? Your Guru, who is the purest light of God. Did you hear the shabd the girls were singing today? Aise gur ko bal bal jaye aap mukt mohitare. Goes, I am a sacrifice to this Guru. He was already free. He already become one with God. He already had everything he wanted. He had reached the truth. But he decided to still come back to this world to help us and carry us across this ocean. And that's the miracle we're always trying to tell you about here. When we say, oh, where's God? Where's Guru? And we point over there and like, yeah, it looks like a book. I don't know, right there. We have got to feel it. That you are sitting in the presence of the greatest miracle you're going to ever see in your life. the power of God himself. And that's what this is all about. So when we look around the world, we see all these different people, and they do amazing things. You know, when you watch the Olympics are going to start now, right, in Russia, right? And everybody's getting ready to watch them. And you know what? You're going to see people do amazing things. And you're going to be like, wow, the human body can do that? Look at that person, the way they ski, or the way they're doing that particular sport. But guess what? That human body can still only do what God would have let it do. And your Guruji can do limitless. There's no limit to what Guruji could have done. And that's why we look at Chamkor di Gadi, and you see how can 40 people fight against this army of 1 million, and Guruji still escapes. Guruji still able to get away. And that's the miracles we're talking about. And that's why inside your heart, you have to find it in you somehow to rise to there, right? So we go to school and we feel the pressure. You know, I always tell parents, there's some parents I know out there, their kids have hair. They've got judes on their head, but they never go to Gurdwara, they never do part. They're just families who never cut their hair. So they're like, oh, my great-grandpa was Amritari, and then he never cut his hair, and then my parents never cut their hair, my brothers and sisters didn't cut their hair, so my children don't cut their hair. But there's a difference between having hair and case. Case is understanding that's a blessing from God. Hair is just this growing it long, that's hair. But knowing what it means and being proud of it and understanding the courage it takes and the strength it takes to keep it, that's what makes it gesh. So just like a gun, anybody can't just get a gun. You have to go get a license to get a gun. And I had to fill someone's reference letter once, and they ask all these questions like, is this person mentally stable? Has this person ever done anything that you think is inappropriate? Like, they want to make sure anybody who's a right to hold a gun is responsible enough to hold a gun. And so just like us, if we want to be responsible, we need to understand what this is all about. There comes a lot of courage that it takes to follow the path of Guruji. But God says, you know what? That courage is such a small thing. Look at Helen Keller had to face growing up in her life. And look at us. Our challenges are very hard. We go to school, we can see, we can hear, we can do everything, and we still have 100 reasons not to do the right thing. And so that's how I want you to understand. I want you to go to school. It's really important to try to go to university or college and get educated. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good job, and then you're going to be struggling and frustrated your whole life. And Guruji said you're not going to become beggars. Anything you want in life, earn it yourself. Don't take from others. Don't steal from others. Don't rip people off. Don't be dishonest. Be really, really honest in everything you do. And you can't if you don't have a good job. And so we have to go to school. But remember, that isn't going to ever be a lot of people have gone to school before you. A lot of people have done a lot of smart things. But getting close to God, that's truly an accomplishment. And so remember we talked last time about Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Darbar and Mata Gujari's mother, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's father, and how Guru Gobind Singh Ji had a previous lifetime. Did you have a previous lifetime? Did you? How many of you think you did? Yeah, 84 lakh June. 8,400,000 lives. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says more than that, but Hindu religion says 8,400,000 lives. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says we'll accept that. Call it 84 lakh June, but he goes, you have gone through this horrible, horrible, horrible ocean of different lives, different beings that fly in the air, they're in the water. Maybe some of you are dinosaurs before. It's unimaginable. But when you talk to scientists, they can't even understand. They're like, on this same planet, dinosaurs were here before. They can't figure it out. How they got here and how they got destroyed and how we got here, they still can't figure it out. They call it the missing link. And so all of this that even science doesn't know the answer to. So all these creatures, it seems unimaginable that we were a fish before, a dog before, a cat before, and maybe some of you were humans before. You had a chance to be a human, and now you're here again. You did something good. So Guruji is trying to tell us that I too had a previous lifetime. And this is your chance. Gobind Milan ki ehe teri bariya. Guruji says, this is your only chance to meet God. He goes, in this dark age, the only truest good deed you can do, because everything else is just to succeed, like to survive in life. You need to survive in this world. Like if you were a caveman, you would need a spear to survive. But now we're more educated. We have so many things. Now we need an education to survive. So these are things for your survival. But he goes, the truest deed you can do for your soul, ehopun gun Gobind gahe, to sing the praises of God, which is why we always say do 5 minutes of sermon every day. So this is why is this Gurdwara so important? What is so important about this Gurdwara Sahib? Yeah, Guru Gobind Singh Ji revealed himself in this Gurdwara, right? He's born to Mata Gujari in this place, right? That's where his Prakash happened. And that was a coup. It's still there. That was a well by which Mata Gujari gave birth to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And that is Guru Gobind Singh Ji Shoti Dastar. If you go to Patna Sahib, I went there and I saw these things. They have that. That's Guru Gobind Singh used to wear that Dastar when he's a little child and he used to run around Patna Sahib. And those are what? Guru Gobind Singh Ji's little shoes that he used to wear. And you know, Guru Gobind Singh Ji became the most amazing ultimate warrior, right? It was already predicted, right? Before he was even going to be born, right? Guru Hargobind Singh already said, he told Mata Nanaki, his wife, he goes, there's going to be a Marda Gamara, the most extraordinary man this world has ever seen. And he is going to have every single quality in the most limitless, the best poet, the best philosopher, the best warrior. And he will have to put it all together to put that final piece into what we call the Khalsa Panth. And so who is our Guru? So these are just things that we do, right? These are things that distract us from understanding. Is it wrong to play Xbox? No. Is it wrong to play Nintendo? No. Is it wrong to watch TV? No. As long as you do it in limits, right? What's wrong is when we sit there all day long, 6 hours at a time, and your parents can't unglue you from the TV, and when they ask you to stop, you're like, 10 more minutes. I have a son, I know, right? It's always 10 more minutes. And 10 more minutes ends up being like 2 hours sometimes. And you know what? It's too much sometimes, right? And your parents tell you too, you can play with these things, but not all day long. And so you got to look and say, how much time did I spend remembering Guruji? So what Guruji says is, you know what, when you're starting off, first thing in the morning, if you just have a bath and you remember me, and again in the evening at nighttime, you know what, that's good for now. And then do everything else in the between there. But at least spend a little bit of time remembering why you were here in the first place. Because remember, the end is going to come for everyone. We all have the same goal. It's going to be death. No one can stay here forever. It doesn't matter. We can live to be 100. There's a picture they showed us the other day. It's on the National Geographic, and it's a picture of a little girl. She's the cutest little baby. And they said, this girl is going to live to be 120 years old. Because they say the technology we have today is going to make these new babies live longer and longer. So people are going to live to be 120 one day, maybe 150 one day. But it could even be 200. But one day, they will expire and they will leave the world, right? And so this is Guru Gobind Singh Ji. As he got older, he was just a child like you. He had a body of a baby. And then he had a body of like a toddler. Then he had the body of a 5-year-old. So his body always grew just like normal human bodies grow. He wasn't born as a man. He was born just like we are as a child. But inside his soul, that was different. And you saw when Peer Pikan Shah comes sees him, and he's got the body of a 3-month-old baby. But does he have the mind of a 3-month-old baby? Does he have the soul of a 3-month-old baby? No, he did what no 3-month-old baby doesn't know anything. If you put a bowl of milk in front of them, they would just put his hand in there, maybe put the hand back in his mouth. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji put such pressure on those pots to show Peer Pikan Shah, I hear you and I understand you, and I'm not speaking right now with my mouth, but I'm speaking to you with my soul. And Peer Pikan Shah heard him and he understood. So when Guru Gobind Singh Ji is young, he used to do things and he had understanding. Once these ladies were taking pots of water back to their home from the well, and he took a slingshot and he broke the lady's the pot, and she got so mad, so she went to Mata Gujari and she goes, your child is doing sharta. You know, we always thought he's blessed, look what he's doing. But then the ladies came and said, you weren't paying attention when your pot broke. You took off to go complain to Mata Gujari, but we saw your pot when it found the ground and there was a little snake in it. So if she had taken that water home and fed it to her and given it to her children, the snake would have come out and maybe bit one of her kids. So that's the difference. Sometimes things happen to our lives. We're like, why did this happen? But we don't know how Guruji is protecting us because we don't know our past. And we don't even know what's going to happen in 10 seconds. And how Guruji blesses us with his hand. So that's how we always turn to Bani all the day. Remember Guruji, so he's always closest to us as possible. And now this is Pandit Shiv Dutt. He was a person who really did a lot of prayers. And he was a Hindu and he believed in Ram, right? You know, we talk about Ram and Krishna and Ram and Sita, so Ram Chandra. So he used to do spot every day by the river and say, God, Ram, I want to see you in the human form. That's all I want. Maybe it's wrong to ask for this, but this is what I want. So he used to pray all the time. He did this for years and years and years and years. And now he's 80 years old. Very peaceful man, very kind, but this is his only one wish. Now, does Guruji know what's in everybody's heart? Does he know what's in everybody's mind? And you can't hide from Guruji ever. If you're at home and you sneak in the corner and you do something, you think nobody saw me, Guruji did. And you might think a thought, you're like, nobody knows what I'm thinking, Guruji knows. And so Pandit Shivdat's sitting there and God knows. So Guruji came up to him and he jumped up behind him in his ear. He said, Jat. You know how we play a game with kids and we're like, peekaboo. So that's what he did. He said, Jat. It's like saying peekaboo. And he went and stood in front of Pandit Shivdat. So when he said, Jat, Pandit Shivdat opened his eyes and Guruji's body turned into the body of Ram. So when he looked, he didn't see little 5-year-old Guru Gobind Singh's body. He saw Ram Chandar. And he was so shocked. He's like, oh my gosh, this is what I wanted my whole life. And then what Guruji did, so he showed him the body, but then he turned back into a child again. And he showed him, he goes, what you're looking for, God or your wishes, I can bless you. And Pandit Shivdat realized that day that Guru Gobind Singh Ji is the light of God. And he is a blessed soul. And for the rest of the time, he was there to always sit there every day, not waiting for Ramchandra anymore, but for Guru Gobind Singh Ji to come. And when he'd see him, then his heart would get so happy. Now at the same time, there's another Rani there, Rani Mani. She lives in the same village, and she was always doing ardas for a child. She didn't have children, and now she's getting older. She's almost 40 years old, and her husband's name is Fateh Chand Mani. Raja Fateh Chand Mani is her husband, and she always wanted children. So one day Pandit Shivdat went over to her, because he'd met Guru Gobind Singh Ji now. He goes, you're doing ardasa all the time for a child? Do you know who walks in the alleys right here behind your house? Who's playing outside in the fields there? It is God himself, the glory of God. And so when she saw that one day, she did ardas, and she goes, you, that young child that you are, I want to do a darshan of you, and I want you to bless me. And what did Guru Gobind Singh Ji do? He ran and he sat in her lap. Because you're doing ardas for a child, what better child could you have than me? And he said, from now on, you're like my mother and I'm like your son. And then she used to feed all the children even before that, chole. And if you go there now in India, they have a Gurdwara called Gurdwara Bal Lila Mani, and it's made at that spot where Rani Mani's house used to be. And when you go there, in Prashad, instead of giving you deg, they give you those chole that she used to feed to all the children, and that she used to feed to Guru Gobind Singh Ji all the time. So when Guru Gobind Singh Ji is 5 years old, where does he go? They're in Patna Sahib right now. What happens when Guru Gobind Singh Ji is 9 years old? What's the big amazing thing that happens when he's 9 years old? Who can remember? This is like a trick question a little bit, but if you know, this is like awesome. What is it? Yeah, so Guru Tegh Bahadur Shahidi happens, right? And where is he when the Pandits come and talk to his father and say, can you please come and help us? Which city is that in? Who knows? Is it in Patna Sahib? The Pandits come all the way to Patna Sahib. Where do they come to talk to Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji? To ask Guru Tegh Bahadur to save their Hindu religion. Where do they go? Yes? Sorry? Keskar Sahib? No, the Pandits come, they're Kashmiri Pandits, but where do they go to meet Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji? Who knows? Yes? Anandapur Sahib. Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji in Anandapur Sahib. And where's Guru Gobind Singh Ji at that time? No? Because remember, who's the person that tells Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji that, yeah, who's better, more better than you to go to give the Shahidi? Guru Gobind Singh Ji is with his father. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji is 9 years old. He's in Anandapur Sahib. When he's 5 years old, he's still in Patna Sahib. So does he have to get from Patna Sahib to Anandapur Sahib? Yes, so he's 5 years old, and his father, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, says now it's time to go back to Anandapur Sahib, and we're going to do more prachar from there. So they travel there, and on the way they pass the village of Kurum village, which is where Pekan Shah was. And so they go meet Pekan, he's not a Pandit, Fakir, Pekan Shah. So they go meet him there, and they do give him darshan again, and he's so happy again. He sees Guru Gobind Singh, he's 5 years old, and once again, Peer Pekan Shah bows down to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and he blesses him, asks for his blessing, and he says, you know what, I'll always see you as the image of God. And then he ends up where? Anandapur Sahib. And we know what Guru Gobind Singh Ji does after that, right? So he does amazing things, right? For the Panth. And he's young, right? So Guru Gobind Singh Ji doesn't look like when he's 40 years old. He's really looking young. What happens now is Pandit Shiv Dutt has always loved Guru Gobind Singh Ji. When Guru Gobind Singh Ji left the village of, in Patna Sahib when he was 5 years old, he always in his heart missed him so much. And they'd always hear things. So when he turned 9, they heard that, oh, Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji Shaheed now, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji is a Guru now. And they'd hear all the things that are happening, all the battles Guru Gobind Singh Ji fought, what happened at Paonta Sahib. They heard all these things happening. And they'd always ask people, what's happening to Guru Gobind Singh Ji now? What's going on now? So when Guru Gobind Singh Ji is 20 years old, Pandit Shiv Dutt, he's now about 75 years old, close to 80 years of age. And Mata Mani, she goes up to him and she goes, you know what? I really feel like seeing Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So we're going to go to Anandapur Sahib and do darshan. Do you want to come? What do you think Pandit Shiv Dutt said? Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. He's like, I want to go. I think about him every single second of my life. And I'd be so happy to do the darshan of that beautiful, beautiful child who's now 20 years old. He's a young man. So now Pandit Shiv Dutt's really, really old. His body's really frail. So they get a carriage to carry him in, like one of these things. So he sits in there, and he's and Mata Mani sits in there too. And then they travel, and a lot of people from the village, they travel too. Like they're excited. Like when you go on a trip, you're so excited just to go see Mickey Mouse. And imagine getting to see Guru Gobind Singh Ji again. And not only just seeing Guru Gobind Singh Ji, already knowing how amazing Guru Gobind Singh Ji is. So they're all excited. They go on this trip, and they finally get really close. But when they're close, they're not at Keskar Sahib yet. They're like still maybe a mile away. Guru Gobind Singh Ji, because he's Antarjami, knows everything. He knows they're coming. So he was sitting in Darbar, and right in the middle of Darbar, he got up from the takht. He got his horse, and he left. And Sangat said, "Where's Guruji going?" So he started galloping really, really fast towards Pandit Shiv Dutt and Rani Mani, because this is, Guruji says, if you take one step towards me, Satgur Kot Pande Aage Hote Leta Hai, because Guruji will take thousands of steps towards you to bring you towards him. So he knew how much these Pandit Shiv Dutt and Mata Mani loved him. So he wasn't like, yeah, I'm sitting here, you come see me. He showed that I have even more love for you, just as much love for you. So he's galloping towards them. And then when he got close to the carriage, Pandit Shiv Dutt, he can hear him talking in there, and he's like saying to Mata Mani, Guruji's probably so busy. He's probably got lots of followers. You know what? We'll go in there. We'll quietly go Matha Tek. We'll sit there. Maybe at the end of Darbar in the evening, we'll go approach him. We'll see if he recognizes us, right? And they're like talking like that because they don't think of themselves like awesome people. They just think like we're just two of millions of followers who love Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And they're talking like this, and Mata Mani's like, yeah, you know what, by tonight when he's like settled down, he's done all his responsibilities for the day, then we'll go talk to him and we'll see if he recognizes us again, right? And as they're talking like that, Guru Gobind Singh Ji rode his horse right up to that little throne, and he opened the curtain and he said, what do you think he said? That was the very first thing I ever said to Pandit Shiv Dutt when he's sitting there on the edge of the river. What was that word he said? Yes? Jat. Yeah, that's what he said to him. And Pandit Shiv Dutt realized that he knows who I am, and he started crying so much. He didn't expect Guruji to drive up to his carriage. He thought he would go there, maybe hopefully do darshan from far away. In the evening he would see him, and he just cried and cried. And then Guru Gobind Singh, he went to Mata Mani, and she goes, do you remember me? He goes, what do you mean remember me? You're my mother. And he called her mother, and she cried so much. Because remember, she always wanted a son, and in her heart, he was her son. And she realized that Guru Gobind Singh, he loves me as much as he would love a mother. And then Guru Gobind Singh, he brought them into the Darbar, and he gave them so much love and respect and Satgar. And then later, when it was time for them to leave, like many days later, Mata Mani had to go, and he gave her so much love. But Pandit Shiv Dutt said, I'm old now, and I want nothing but to end my life right here in your charan. I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't want to sit at the edge of that river anymore. I just want to be with you. So he spent the rest of his days in the company of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, in his Darbar, doing Path every day, doing Simran every day. And then one day he came in, many months later, And he matha tekya, and he grabbed Guruji's charan, and he kept his head on his charan for a long, long, long time. And finally, Sangat is like, oh, he's been there for a long time. They touched him, and he breathed his last breath with his head on Guru Gobind Singh Ji's charan. So that's the love. Those who have loved Guruji, that's how they've loved him. Those who hated him, we saw that, right? Look at Chamkor di Gadi. The ones who hated him so much. But the ones who loved him with their life. And we saw the Panj Pyare and the Chali Mukta giving their life for Guru Gobind Singh Ji. We saw Peer Bikin Shah, a Muslim, and there's so many Hindus that love the Gurujis and the Muslims that love the Gurujis. And this is true love. And that's what we're asking you to do. Love Guru like you've never loved anybody in your life. And give yourself to Guru like you've never loved anybody in your life. So I'm telling you, I grew up here too. I want to let you know, I grew up in BC, in a small town called Campbell River, and I'm a teacher. So I have a lot of my friends who are not Punjabis. I don't have any Amritari friend that works with me at the school. They're all not like, some are Punjabi teachers, we say some Goreya, Chineya, right? All different cultures and backgrounds. And we have a really good friendship and relationship. Some of them are really my close friends. And we talk to each other all the time, and they'll talk, and they share things with me, and I share things with them, and they respect me, and they don't care I have a turban, they don't care that I have a facial hair, they don't care that I wear kirpan, and I go out, when I'm at school I have to wear my kirpan underneath, but when I go out and meet them, when I'm not at school, I have my kirpan on, and this is exactly how I go and talk to them. I just met my friends that, 2 of my teacher friends moved to other schools, so every 6 months we get together, and we spend a little bit of time together, a couple of hours together, and this is how I want to talk to them. If you can't accept yourself, no one's going to ever accept you, ever. You can look like somebody else. You can say, oh, I'll cut my hair. I won't ever wear kirpan. I'll wear Western clothes. I'll wear exactly the same clothes they wear. If they're going to accept you, they're going to accept you no matter what. And if they're not going to accept you, they're not going to accept you no matter what. So you have to first learn to accept yourself. And you have to know when sometimes the hardest times come, people look at you in a funny way. People treat you differently. The very first time I went to an airport, when all that 911 stuff happened, they treated people that were like different so badly, right? If you had a turban, they thought you were going to blow up their planes, and you had so much, they gave you such a hard time when you had to check into security. But you can't let those times make you weak inside. You have to remember the courage that these people loved. Pandit Shivdat didn't care what he looked like. He didn't care for anything in the world. He knew, I have seen God, and I'm never going to leave him no matter what. And that's what the thing we have to do all the time. I've ended here, so I'm going to stop right now because I think I'm going to go over, and you have lots of prizes and things to win. So we have a whole bunch of books here. And Melissa's going to get you to help me give out the prizes because I don't know who gets what. So Randeep Kaur, she's 7 years old. Are you here today, Put? Randeep Kaur? Randeep Kaur. Is she here? Is that your sister? Okay, Randeep Kaur is 13. It's your birthday today? Okay, so we're going to do a jagara. Bole Sonehal. Now, do you do 5 minutes of Simran every day?
Yes.
Every day? Okay, Shabash, excellent. And she gets, oh, this is awesome actually. Learned to write Punjabi alphabet, very good. And now we have Mantaj Singh Tillon. Did you hear Mantaj Singh Tillon? Oh wow, look at him, he's got a beautiful dastar on. And also Jashanpreet Singh. Jashanpreet Singh. You're Jashanpreet? Shabash, she's always just so much seva and answer so many questions. Do you do 5 minutes of Simran every day?
Sometimes.
Oh my gosh, sometimes? I thought all the time. You're just starting all the time, okay? And what do you do 5 minutes of Simran? Does Simran come to you? Okay, we can do Jagara. Does Fazia would make them do Jagara? They do their own Jagara for the birthday? Okay, you have to do Jagara.
Bole Sonehal.
Sa Sri Akal.
Bole Sonehal.
Sa Sri Akal. Shabash. And congratulations to their parents for bringing them to Gurdwara Sahib and reminding them how important it is to stay connected to Guruji. And because of their birthdays, it's pasta and cake for langar today. So shabash. So badaiyan thanu, good job. And make sure matha take to Guru Sahib before you go back. Okay, also, so we have a ticket for Nahal. How many of you have been to Nahal program before? Nobody here? A few people? Okay, I've gone every year since they started. This is so good for all you children. Because people want to go see shows and things all the time and looking for things to do, but this is a show. It's really, really, really well put on. Like I said, I have not missed a single one since they started. It's all young university students, and they do skits, and they always have a serious skit to teach you a really important lesson, and they also have always a skit that's kind of funny, and it teaches you a lesson too, but it makes you laugh a lot as well. And then they have a lot of other little things in there that they do, and it's so awesome seeing all these good Sikh bache up there, and doing all these things and putting on this beautiful show. So the tickets are only $10. So I'd encourage everybody here. They're downstairs right before you exit by the Langar Hall. They're there selling tickets. This is such a good cause. This is such a good cause. It's excellent, and I would really encourage you all to at least go to it once and see what it's all about. And all you young children, it's awesome role models for them to really understand what it's like to grow up as a good Sikh in this time and age. So we're going to actually give this ticket away, right? Are we? We're going to give this ticket away. So get out your tickets, and if you win, you have to tell your family to buy more tickets. So the ticket is a yellow one, 159185. Oh, shabash, and you answered so many questions today too. There you go. And do you do 5 minutes of Simran every day?
No.
Oh my gosh, he's so proud of you. No? Why not?
I play all day.
You play all day. Are you going to start doing 5 minutes of Simran every day?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So do Jagara.
Bole sonehar.
Sri Akal. Okay, and we have two more draws. So this is a blue ticket, 0243498. 0243498. And you can pick up one of these prizes. Make sure everybody pick it. And do you do 5 minutes of Simran every day?
Yes.
Gosh, see, good job. And do Jagara?
Bole sonehar.
Sri Akal. You want to practice that a little bit. Okay, one last ticket. And it's a yellow one, 1591895. 1591895. Is that you? Excellent. And then we get this prize. Beat the parents. So parents have to play. It's kids versus grown-ups. Awesome. Okay, and do you do 5 minutes of Simran every day?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Are you gonna start? Is that the right answer or wrong answer? Wrong. Are you going to start doing it?
Yes. Bole sonehar.
Sri Akal. The beautiful Damala. Now we're going to do Jagare. So we're going to all stay seated, remember? So we're going to get Anup Singh to come up here. He's going to do the Jagare.
देख 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 पंथ की जीत राज करेगा खालसा झूलते निशान रहे पंथ महाराज के झूलते निशान रहे पंथ महाराज के बले सोनेहाल सांसरिया का बले सोनेहाल सांसकाल बले सोनेहाल
Shabash. And so once again, Vidanya for Guru Gobind Singh of Darbar from last week. And so make sure you nicely, slowly matha take and go down. Oh, wait, you have to say something before you go. Vaheguru Ji Ka. Oh, wait. Okay, everybody sit down. Everybody's going to sit down quickly, just for 10 more seconds. Okay, she's going to say something. I don't know.
take fateh पंथ की आज्ञा झूठे चांदे
Maharaj ke
बले सोनेहाल
Sri Akal.
बले सोनेहाल
Kanakiya.
कमे
Shabash. We should give her a prize. Okay, so say the fateh, but you know what? I want you to really slowly matha take. There's lots of food downstairs, and then go. But say the fateh first. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.